On August 7, 1998, two nearly simultaneous bombs blew up in front of the U.S. embassies outside Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and Nairobi, Kenya. The bombing, which was orchestrated by Al-Qaeda, was having some connections to a masjid where my friend Abu Imran was attending back in the 90s. Here is an interview, a discussion, a part of a discussion where we talked about this incident. If you enjoyed it, check out the full video linked in the comments below.
There were the bombings at the U.S. Embassy of Tanzania and Kenya.
Oh.
Remember, in 98, this is what happened around that same time. And
98? No, I wasn't Muslim. I mean, I was just a kid back
really,
then.
98.
Well, I was born in 83, so I was pretty young. Yeah.
Okay, so I was still, in my late 20s, going that way towards my 30s. And in 98, there was when that bombing happened, it was a huge issue because Center Street Masjid was tied to that, because like I told you, Sheikh Motaz was connected to some people. So he had a brother there by the name of Wadi al-Haji. Okay, if you ever look him up, if anybody who's watching, you can look him up. I knew Wadi al-Haji. He was a neighbor. He lived close to me in the same complex. And his wife, April, used to know my first ex-wife.
And he's an Al-Qaeda member.
So he was the secretary of Osama bin Laden. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And you knew this guy.
Let me clarify about Wadi. And he was a really, really nice guy. And it came as a shock when they arrested him at the masjid. I'll never forget. I wasn't there when that happened, but they told me, they came and got Wadi. He's gone. He got arrested. They're implicating him for what happened in Nairobi and in Dar es Salaam.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? He was like into it like that, because it was normal. Like, okay, in 98, in those days, Osama bin Laden he was considered a mujahid Salafi. People just said he was a Salafi mujahid. He's fighting fi sabilillah. He's trying to help, the people in Afghanistan and Sudan and everywhere. And so we didn't think much of it. It wasn't till later when he turned on the Saudi government that they would call him Khariji, from the Khawarij. But at that time, we didn't think that, okay, he's the secretary of Osama bin Laden. Big deal. So what? He's just taking care of the paperwork and stuff like that. And Wadi himself was like I said, very nice. He was a little man. He was like really short. And I can't remember, one of his hands was real little. So he used to put it in his thobe.
Just taking care of the paperwork for a terrorist. No, nothing, not a big deal. He's just taking care of the paperwork.
I'm describing him so you can get the understanding. He's just this frail little man.
Yeah.
And I remember we got along because we both had the same Muslim name. I was Abdul Sabur, he was Abdul Sabur, and we would talk a lot. He was a Maruni, he was a Maronite Christian, and then converted to Islam. And then so I was a Catholic to convert to Islam. And so we both just got along really well. And we used to talk a lot after Maghrib. And when they took him, I was just like, whoa, I can't believe this. Like, shit, this is getting crazy. And then
so you didn't know he was involved in jihad or anything like that?
Yeah, see, jihad. So we had the jihadist element at Center Street Masjid, and they're usually pretty vocal about the jihad. They were like really, like the Abdullah Azam type people. They're like, they're into some jihad, right? But Wadi didn't have that mind. He didn't talk like that. He talked kitab wa sunnah. He talked, salafiyah, about, like this. So it was like I said, it was a real shock. Even his mother-in-law, if you read the interviews she'll say he wasn't involved in any of that. And to be honest with you, I think if you're doing something, the government is going to get you. And that's the way it is in the United States. In my almost 28 years of being Muslim, I've never had the government harass me. They only harass people who are doing shit. If you are doing stuff you're not supposed, like Ali Tamimi got arrested, he was doing some shit. Like, if you're doing stuff, you're gonna get it. Okay?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, but I have to be honest, as a Muslim, I was scared of being caught up, even though I had nothing to do with jihad. I was still scared of being arrested for what do you know about, like, because I don't know if it's a Muslim, I think it's a Muslim community that does this. They make you feel like anyone can be arrested and, intimidated, interrogated for jihad, like you just guilty by association sort of thing. I mean, I was scared that, if CSIS comes to my door, the Canadian Security Agency, I was like, oh, I won't let them come in. And then I was talking to one of my friends who knew one of the Toronto 18. And he's like, no, don't be like that. He said, CSIS came to my door to ask me about my connection to this guy that was in the Toronto 18 that wanted to kill Stephen Harper, the prime minister, and bomb this and that. And he's like, yeah, I let them in. And I talked to them and I told them that I told them whatever they wanted to know about this guy, and nothing happened to me. Like, I think there's a lot of fear in the Muslim community. I don't know now. This is outdated information now from when I was Muslim, but there was a lot of fear about cooperating with the authorities because they think that they will be, thrown in jail unjustly or something like that. But what you're saying is completely true, that there's no reason to fear the government because the government is actually on your side. They just want stability and peace. They don't want to throw innocent people in jail. I mean, yes, they've done that before, but like from what I've seen, they're very happy if you work with them. They're not gonna, you know what I'm saying? So there's a trust issue there for sure, right?
Yeah, but with Salafis also, they're so entrenched into like conspiracy theories and things, and so it's not uncommon. But there's also like okay, so cooperating with the government, like a jihadist would say, that astaghfirullah, that's haram. But like I remember when Sheikh Uthaymeen was alive, he was from one of the major scholars in Saudi Arabia. He would say, you live in a non-Muslim country, you obey the laws there, you act civil, you're there. They're not persecuting you. They're not locking you up. They're not killing you or executing you. They're not raping your women. Yeah. You have a bond of peace. And so therefore you should be peaceful to them. And so a lot of people took that statement of Sheikh Uthaymeen. A lot of Salafis took that and said, we have to stop acting like this with the American government because we aren't.
Really? They didn't call him a sellout?
No. Oh, no. Well, of course, the jihadis didn't like that.
Of course.
The jihadists were like, totally no. That's
yeah. Wrong. So that's what happens. There's a I guess a fringe element, but they're the ones that anytime anyone talks about cooperating with kuffar, and I think there's a bigger problem in Salafism than with the non-Salafis, that there's this us versus them mentality. That's why I'm shocked that Ibn Uthaymeen said that, because there's a lot of, they're just kuffar, we shouldn't support the kuffar, we should, like you said, you shouldn't join the army. I was told, I even heard as a Muslim, that you shouldn't even give blood. Like in Canada, we donate blood, we don't get paid for it. People were saying, don't give blood because it'll go to the army, and they're killing Muslims. Like that's the mentality of us versus them that exists in the Muslim community.
Well, that moiety does exist still with Salafis, but I think what the Salafi ulama are talking about there, especially those from Saudi Arabia, is that because the Saudi government has a pact or a bond with the United States, with Canada, these are countries that are not invading Saudi Arabia. And given that the United States at one time protected the kingdom when Saddam Hussein was, launching Scud missiles into Riyadh, there is still this level. And this is another thing that would surprise me as well, is when I lived in Saudi Arabia, how much you would hear from the ulama that, it's not permissible to kill non-Muslims. It's not permissible to, there's a quietist and peaceful element to it. Mm-hmm. Hey, don't get me wrong. There's this element of, you're not supposed to kill people and stuff, but tied to that still is, they're still kuffar,
Yeah.
You don't assimilate, just live with them in peace and then invite them to Islam. And so one day, maybe where you live will be all a Muslim country,
Yeah.
Mentality. Like, it's still, there's still that hatred. There's still this issue of al-wala wal-bara, right?
Yes.
Al-wala, loyalty to the Muslims, al-bara, disavowing yourself from the non-Muslims. You still keep that there, but you be peaceful, right?
Yeah. So definitely, I think most people who understand Salafism understand this, that Salafis are definitely against terrorism. They are usually, even though jihadis tend to be Salafis, which is again kind of funny thing, but Salafis, like you said, the major Salafi scholars, they all speak against terrorism. In fact, the Saudi government, they need this because they understand that they are also going to be the target of terrorist attacks because of the alliance with America. Just like Anwar Sadat was assassinated for making a peace treaty with Israel, Saudis are also going to be called kuffar by the jihadists, and they're going to be, potentially bombed and stuff like that. So Saudis don't want any of that. So they definitely support this type of Salafism that supports, we're against terrorism. These terrorists are Khawarij and they're all evil, and we don't do this. We don't, do any of these things. Even though, again, the jihadis tend to be Salafis too, which is kind of weird. But yeah, that's definitely a part of Salafism, is against terrorism.
You bring up a good point here, and for those who haven't seen my video, I have Introduction to Critical Salafi Discourse Analysis. There is a categorization chart that I put up, and I've sectioned off the way the Salafis should be, the way I see them in my time being Salafi, how they should be viewed. And the number one group is the group you're talking about. Those are the jihadi takfiri Salafis, Osama bin Laden, Ayman al-Zawahiri, you know, your Al-Qaeda, your Al-Shabaab, your Daesh.
Salafi.
Yeah, they're Salafi. They're Salafi because they're only practicing the Salafi way of jihad. Okay, but a quietist Salafi will tell you minhajan, methodology-wise, and aqidatan, and in terms of aqidah, the aqidah might be there, but the aqidah is also not right because they take from the original Khawarij, the mentality was what? Among the Khawarij, in the days of them coming up, if a Muslim committed a sin from the kaba'ir or the saghair, your blood was halal, so you could be killed. And that's
any sin, right? Kaba'ir, saghair means major sin, minor sin.
Yes, the major sins and the minor sins. So for the Khawarij, they're in terms of belief, they held that if you even committed the saghair, the small sins in Islam, your blood was halal, so you could be killed for the smallest infringement. And then also believe you would reside in the hellfire forever for committing that sin.